She stood on a brightly lit stage at just 13 years old, her voice raw, fierce, and utterly unlike anything the audience had ever heard from someone so young. The crowd sat in stunned silence as Courtney Hadwin poured every ounce of her soul into the song. Nobody expected a tiny girl from County Durham, England, to walk into a sold-out American theater and leave it shaking within seconds. Her story is one of extraordinary talent, relentless dedication, a moment of sudden and terrifying danger, and, ultimately, a spirit that refused to be broken. From a hopeful audition in a small English village to a heartbreaking accident on an American highway, Courtney Hadwin's journey is one of the most remarkable tales to emerge from the world of televised talent competitions in recent memory. Courtney Hadwin was born on May 6, 2004, in Heselden, a small and quiet village nestled in County Durham, England. She was raised by her parents and Marie and Paul Hadwin, two hardworking individuals who recognized their daughter's gift early and made every effort to nurture it. From the very beginning, music was the language that Courtney spoke most fluently. Her mother filled the house with recordings from a wide variety of established artists, and even as a toddler, Courtney was captivated. By the age of 3, she was dancing with her hands raised in the air whenever music played, her small body moving instinctively to rhythms that she seemed to understand on a deeply personal level. Her parents loved watching her perform these little shows in their living room, delighting in the pure joy that music brought their daughter. When she turned 8, her school introduced formal singing lessons, and it did not take long for her music teacher to notice something special. Courtney possessed an angelic tone and a depth of voice that was unusual for a child her age. She was encouraged to join the school choir, and weekly rehearsals in the school hall helped her grow increasingly confident with every song she learned. Performing alongside her classmates gave her a sense of pride and belonging. Her schoolmates gave her the nickname Rocker Girl after watching her sing and dance simultaneously, something she did with a natural confidence that impressed everyone around her. She never shied away from performing in front of a crowd, and she never seemed to tire of the stage. Her dedication to her craft went far beyond what was expected of a child. She never missed a music lesson and taught herself to pay careful attention to the mechanics of breathing so that her voice could reach its highest potential. Before school, each morning, she practiced vocal scales in her bedroom mirror and even began writing her own lyrics at a remarkably young age. At 10, she gathered a group of neighborhood children and formed a small band they called Durham Soul. Their parents rallied behind them, contributing money toward guitars and drums, and small crowds would gather to watch the group perform and sing along. The local community began to take notice. A reporter from a regional newspaper wrote a short feature about the young singer with the angelic voice, and the headline read, "A young girl brings soul to County Durham." That article made her parents immensely proud and gave Courtney something powerful, the belief that her voice truly mattered. She also trained at Schottenhall Theatre School, where her mother drove her every weekend. There, she worked with a dedicated music teacher on phrasing and control, learning how to shape her voice to match the emotional content of every song she sang. Her first real public stage was at a small festival in Durham City, where thousands of people gathered. She was nervous at first beneath those lights, but she quickly found her focus. When she finished her final song, the applause was overwhelming. Even people who did not know her name cheered because her voice had moved them. By the time she was 12, her dreams had outgrown her hometown. She saved her pocket money to help her parents afford plane tickets, and she began writing her goals down late at night, dreaming of sharing her gift with a larger world. Heselden had given her roots, but she was ready to reach for something far greater. In the summer of 2018, 13-year-old Courtney Hadwin stepped off a plane in Omaha, Nebraska, carrying a small suitcase, a leather jacket, and a determination that seemed too large for her slight frame. She had never been to the United States before, and the scale of what she was attempting was not lost on her. Family friends warned her about jet lag and urged her to rest after landing, but her mind was fixed entirely on one goal: earning a place on America's Got Talent. On the morning of her audition, She arrived at the CenturyLink Center feeling a mixture of excitement and nerves. Backstage, hopeful singers and dancers practiced in small groups while staff called names at random, leaving contestants to wait in silence for their turn. Courtney held her fedora hat in one hand and gripped her audition form in the other, breathing slowly as producers led her through a narrow hallway and onto the stage. The judges' table sat beneath blazing lights. Simon Cowell, Heidi Klum, Howie Mandel, and Mel B sat watching each act with the detached professionalism of people who had seen everything before. When Courtney walked to the center of the stage, wearing a small black leather jacket, a white shirt, and dark jeans, her hair falling in loose waves around her shoulders, silence fell across the entire audience. The band began the opening chords of Piece of My Heart, and, at first, Courtney's voice came out soft. She closed her eyes and felt the beat in her chest. Then, in an instant, her true power burst forth. Her tone cracked with longing and raw strength. She stomped her foot in time with the music and moved across the stage like a performer twice her age. Every note carried grit and genuine emotion. Simon leaned forward with his eyebrows raised. Heidi sat bolt upright, eyes wide. Howie covered his mouth with his hand, unable to hide his astonishment. Mel B tapped her fingers on the table, waiting for more. When the final chord rang out, the theater exploded in cheers, and all four judges rose to their feet. Simon reached for his golden buzzer, sending red light cascading across the stage, a moment that signaled her direct passage to the live shows. Courtney's eyes opened. She saw Simon smiling and slowly reached for her fedora. When she glanced over at the wings, she could see her mother weeping tears of joy backstage. Her performance clip spread across social media that same night, and by morning it had accumulated over 10 million views on YouTube. News outlets from the New York Times to the BBC published articles calling her the voice of a teen Janis Joplin. Newspapers in her hometown of Heselden ran front-page features describing how she had taken America by storm. The response was overwhelming and immediate. Fans flooded her social media with messages from as far away as Japan and Brazil. One person wrote that her voice made them feel alive. Another said she reminded them of their own daughter. Courtney was so moved by the outpouring of affection that she could not hold back her tears. She realized in that moment that her singing had connected with people she would never meet, and that connection was precisely what she had always hoped music could do. By the time the live shows began, Courtney Hadwin was no longer simply a contestant on a talent competition. She was a headline. She arrived in Los Angeles under a special chaperone arrangement, continuing her schoolwork with the help of a private tutor while simultaneously preparing for each new performance. Every morning, she woke early to practice, warming up her voice through a series of scales and stretching her chest and shoulders to support each note. Her vocal coach offered detailed guidance on timing and breath control, and small daily improvements built her confidence steadily and measurably. Afternoons were spent rehearsing on the America's Got Talent soundstage, where she learned to work with spotlights and fog machines, to pause for dramatic effect at the end of each phrase, and to move with a microphone stand in a way that looked effortless. Producers and directors were struck by her focus and the maturity she brought to every new challenge. When live show week arrived, she chose to sing Maybe by Janis Joplin, standing on a stage framed by glowing arches and deep red lighting. The crowd rose to its feet midway through the song, cheering so loudly that the sound filled the entire arena. When she finished, confetti cannons burst and covered her in shimmering streamers while the cheers continued to echo for minutes. Her name appeared on charts, music blogs, and fan sites across the world. Talk shows called her team with invitations. She made her first appearance on The Ellen DeGeneres Show, where Ellen gave her a warm welcome, and the two laughed together as Ellen attempted to match her gravelly tone. She then appeared on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, where Jimmy surprised her with a live drumbeat behind her as she sang a blues classic, prompting laughter and genuine admiration from both Jimmy and bandleader Questlove. Record labels sent offers for studio time. Merchandise companies made inquiries. Through all of it, Courtney remained grounded, guided by her mother's words. The that she should sing to share joy, not to chase fame. After every interview, she called home to keep her family close and spent time reading messages from fans who told her that her music had given them hope. The tragic night, in early October of 2018, Courtney joined a small tour supporting fellow America's Got Talent finalists. After weeks of live shows, the group traveled by bus from Minneapolis toward Madison, Wisconsin, for a string of back-to-back theater performances. It was late at night, and heavy rain tapped steadily against the bus windows. Courtney sat near a window, reading messages from fans on her phone while other passengers rested beneath blankets. The driver, experienced with long highway routes, maintained a steady speed through the downpour. As the bus neared a curve on Interstate 94, rain had pooled along the shoulder, and the surface was dangerously slick. A gust of wind pushed the vehicle toward the guardrail. The driver braked hard but could not regain full control, and the bus skidded sideways for nearly 20 feet. Courtney felt a violent jolt that threw her forward. Overhead cabinets burst open, and cases slid from their stowed positions. The sound of metal scraping against metal echoed through the bus. Then, with a final heavy lurch, the vehicle came to rest against the guardrail. Silence followed the impact, broken only by muffled cries and the hiss of rain outside. Courtney rubbed her forehead where it had struck the luggage rack and slowly unfastened her seatbelt. Her right knee throbbed sharply, and a trickle of blood ran down her temple. First responders arrived within minutes, 2 ambulances, a fire truck, and a highway patrol cruiser. Paramedics boarded quickly and assessed each passenger. Courtney was examined beside the bus, and the paramedic confirmed a fracture of her right kneecap. At St. Mary's Hospital in Madison, doctors also diagnosed a mild concussion. No surgery was required for the knee, but she would need 6 weeks of limited movement and a full course of physical therapy. The concussion meant restricted screen time and complete rest. Even from her hospital room, Courtney's first questions were about when she would be able to return to singing safely. News of the crash spread rapidly. Social media filled with messages wishing her a swift recovery. Fellow contestants sent videos expressing relief. Judges Simon Cowell and Heidi Klum recorded personal get-well messages. A GoFundMe page organized by a friend raised $32,000 in under 48 hours to cover travel and therapy costs. Tour dates were canceled, refunds were processed, and the tour bus company released a statement attributing the accident to severe weather conditions. After 2 days in Madison, Courtney flew home to England under medical supervision, and her parents met her at the airport.